Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Cash Flow Positive. First off, I think I did a episode a couple weeks ago. I've had a lot of people reach out to me since. They say they've listened to the show. I really like the feedback. I got some actually really good feedback about some of the audio quality that I didn't realize was a problem, and I'm actually troubleshooting now. So hopefully this episode is coming out a little with better audio because it was not the same as when I listened to it. Someone told me about it. And I was like, I should go listen to it on Spotify. And I was like, yeah, that doesn't sound quite as clear and clean as it should. So anyway, hopefully we got that cleaned up. I appreciate the feedback. It just makes the show better for everyone. So thank you. And if you have feedback in the future, always let me know. I know, for example, the last episode that just got released, the part one of this, we had a video and it didn't have the screen share. And I was like, why don't we have the screen share posted, because I literally told everyone to go to YouTube and we're going to do a screen share and show that video. So anyway, we got that cleaned up. This one, we're going to do another screen share and show some more examples because that is what I promised on the last episode. So let's pick where we left off, pick up where we left off. So we are talking about why most people miss great deals. Last time we talked about building the moat, having vision, and looking for opportunities where they're not super obvious. Okay. And we're going to continue on that theme, but there's a couple other reasons why people miss deals, or potentially, I know some of you who are listening to this are looking for deals right now, why you might be missing opportunities that are right in your face. And so let's dive into the rest of the reasons why most people miss deals on today's episode. Okay. So number one reason why most people miss great deals. And actually, let me pause and go back one because this is important. Last episode, I recorded, I shouldn't have done this, but I did it anyway. I went on vacation. So yeah, I went to the OBX and enjoyed the beach and coming back. And I'm like, I had to listen to the whole episode to know what I talked about. So now that I've got it, I'm here. But I said something interesting and I want to actually highlight it. So remember, we talked about this Montana property in the last episode. If you didn't watch the episode or listen to it, go back and listen to it. You need to see this property and the transformation that Steve Goldsby did. So Steve, long story short, he's got this beautiful Montana property that a ton of people passed on. Okay. So a ton of people passed on. And I called in that episode, I said, I'm going to post this on social media. And I guarantee you that I said like 8 people, at least, I don't know why I said at least 8, but that number is really important. At least 8 people will, who saw the property have been like, oh man, I should have bought it. Sure enough, I went on my Facebook today just to verify that because I was like, that's a really specific number I mentioned. And I did post, so I posted it last week and I looked at the comments and 9 people said, hey, and that's just Facebook. There were people on Instagram who also mentioned it too, but there were people, they were like, hey, I saw that property and I'm kicking myself now for not making moves on it, or I should have bought that one or whatever. Everyone's like, I saw that one and blah, blah, blah. But it's real. People miss great deals all the time. And that was just another like classic example of right in front of your face and lacking vision and that courage to take the step forward, which is crazy because the data is there. It's not like this is like some unsung market or market no one's ever heard of before. I mean, it's freaking like near Whitefish, Montana. We have to act. And that ties directly into point number 1, which is people miss great deals often who do not act. And more importantly, don't act fast. One of the things I joke around about, made this joke before, hopefully I hasn't offended anybody, is sometimes I feel like a therapist with people. Okay, I'm not a licensed therapist, like don't, whatever, don't take that negatively, but literally like I'm talking to people and the analysis paralysis of some individuals, it's like, look, make a move, put in an offer. Putting in an offer doesn't mean you're going to actually commit and buy the property. It's like a soft commit. You still have your due diligence period. Now, if you waive all of your contingencies, yes, then it's a definitely hard commit. But for the most part, due diligence just gives you more time to do due diligence, right? It's 10 to 14 days. I usually, for out-of-state investors, which is going to be most of you, I ask for 14 because we got to bring in contractors. We got to do inspections, and that could be If it's on a septic, it could be a perk test. You got a home inspection. If you have a pool, you have a pool inspection. There's all kinds of stuff that has to be done that really tell you whether a deal is going to make sense or not. But too many people spend too much time spinning their wheels on, I don't know, like what else is out there and not doing all that extra due diligence to firm up whether this is a good deal or not. And then the deal slips between their fingers. I've seen it time and time again. And I'm not going to name names, but I know you were listening and it happens. Sometimes there's obviously a lot of people going in after the same deal and you can't wait. But a lot of times I'm not kidding, I've seen ones that have been on the market for 100 plus days. And for some odd reason, we waited too long and somebody else happens to come along and they're all of a sudden interested in it and they swoop in and get the property and we don't even know some random stranger got it and had been sitting. So when we find things at a high level that can make sense, it doesn't hurt to just throw them under contract and start doing further due diligence. Now, obviously you need your contingencies. Obviously you need to know, how do I get your, my earnest money back if I have to back out? But in a lot of markets, in a lot of states, there aren't a lot of like, you're going to lose a lot of money if you go and do that. In fact, in like Texas, it's like $100 to put something under contract. Now, obviously you got to pay inspection, for the inspections and all that good stuff, but like literally back out, it was like $100 fee. You're out, you're done. Like, okay, so it's okay. Some of the smartest and best investors I personally know, when they're in a 1031 exchange or they're buying or they're in buy mode, they're usually throwing several properties under contract and then doing their due diligence on them. They're like, I like that one. And they put it under contract, negotiate, and then they do their due diligence on it from a number standpoint. Now, I don't recommend everyone to do that. It's very aggressive. But the point is, if we're trying to model the masters or, become great at this, or just good real estate investors, we need to be able to act fast. We need to be able to make moves. And if something doesn't line up, it's okay. We know that putting it under contract isn't the end all be all. Keep that in mind. I would rather see someone put things under contract and back out than someone never put anything under contract and never buy anything. Right? like you hear that and you're like, well, that's obvious. But yet, why do people wait? They're like, well, I don't want to waste someone else's time. Look, I am the king of saying that. And I totally understand that. But you are in the business of buying and that person is in the business of selling. And if you're seriously buying, you're not wasting anyone's time, right? The only person that's wasting your time is the seller for not telling you everything you need to know in case it's a bad deal. So don't be afraid to take action. Okay. And that might be simply picking up the phone and calling a realtor and getting someone over there to check it out. It might be, as simple as running the numbers on the property. There's a lot of things that keep people from taking action. I'm using the whole like putting out an offer on a property and getting something under contract, but tons of other mental hurdles for people, especially for introverts that they struggle with. And so if you want to become a good real estate investor, you have to be willing to take action and move quickly, make decisions quickly, but know that you have contingencies, know that you have time later on to figure it out. I had a really good discussion with a client the other day. And he's like, Kenny, I just need to know 5 markets and then we'll look in those 5 markets. And I was like, it doesn't work like this right now. You're trying to buy something for the end of the year. You don't really have the luxury of just choosing 5 markets and then looking in those 5 markets and you're going to find a deal before the end of the year to do a cost seg. Maybe if you're lucky, but there's hundreds, if not thousands of other people trying to do the exact same thing at the exact same time. So what do you have to do? You have to look in more places. And so I was explaining to him, I said, look, we're going to look in more markets. He's like, well, I don't know those markets. I'm like, you will learn those markets. Okay. You're going to look at the data. You're going to look at the numbers. You're going to look at the property and go, that's a cool house on a lake. I don't know the lake. I don't even know where the heck it is, but you know what? Like, let's figure this out. Take my word for it in terms of like the demand, put it under contract and then learn the market. You have 14 days, 2 weeks to learn the market. Do you think you can't learn a market in 2 weeks? Come on. You can do it in a day. And you're going to go see the property. But you have that guarantee, like you have it under contract, you have it locked up, you're not competing against all these other people, and you're able to take action faster and make moves and probably get a really, really good deal, especially if it's the one I'm sending them. So my point being is like, don't be afraid to do that. Okay. You don't need to just familiarize yourself with all these different markets and then huddle if you're on a deadline. Now, if you have more time and flexibility, obviously that is better. That's ideal. But don't be afraid to put things under contract, is my point. Okay. All right. Next thing I want to talk about. So, another reason why people miss great deals, I'm living these things like real time. So that's why I'm like listing them out because I'm like, here's an example, here's an example, here's an example. People, a lot of investors try to buy for themselves. Okay. And it can work. I'm not saying that that's not relevant, but if you're buying in a new market that you're unfamiliar with and you don't know who's going there, I get it. But that means that what you think might look like a good property might not actually be a good property. Okay. For example, if you've never been in the mountains before, this is a very obvious example, but this helps illustrate the point. If you've never been in the mountains before and in the Smokies, there's two 5-bedroom houses. Let's do this is an example. 5-bedroom houses. One is a cabin, log cabin. The other one looks like it's got regular vinyl siding on it. It's nice, but it's not a cabin. Okay. They have the same views, they have the same amenities, everything's the same. Which one in the mountains, in the Smokies, okay, do you think is going to make more money? All things, they're right next to each other. They have the exact same things, exact same amenities, same size. Nothing is different. Layout is exact same, but the property style, the cabin versus the single family home, like, primary residence looking house, that looks probably really nice, but it's not a cabin. Which one do you think is going to make more money? The cabin, right? Okay, that's the obvious answer. Now, let's go to the other side of the Smokies. Let's go in North Carolina. Take the same two cabins. Which one is going to make more money? They're going to make the same amount. Okay. The market changed because the people who are going to these markets, where they're coming from, why they're going there, what those markets have to offer, it's pretty much what we call the guest avatar, right? Who is coming there, why they're coming there, what is their demographic? That is what can help determine what a good deal is. So if I make that assumption and I go into a market like the Smokies and I try to buy, like I buy in North Carolina, it's not going to work out. Whereas if I try to do the same thing in the Smokies, I would be missing opportunities. It's not that the cabins don't work in North Carolina. That's not what I'm saying. They do work, but also the vinyl sided homes also equally work as well. It doesn't matter what the property type is. It's all about the amenities, the proximity, the views, all that good stuff in North Carolina. If that's the case, if I don't know that, I'm going to miss opportunities right in front of my face based on assumptions I have. Another classic example of this is going into a market where a certain style or like, for example, very modern houses. There's a lot of, I think of like Sedona. I think of even Asheville, North Carolina. I think of certain markets that are probably have grown recently that have more modern builds and they're more desirable. It's a style of real estate that is more desirable than in certain other areas of the country. And so if we go in and we're like, no, I want something more antiquated and I want something more like old school in this market. Did you just hear what I said? I want something more. That's not what drives revenue. Kenny wants things that drive revenue in a market. If it's a super modern house and that's what drives revenue in a market, well, I guess I'm buying a super modern house in that market. Okay. So my point being is that if we don't understand, this is point number 2, if we don't understand the guest avatar, why people are going there, and we're buying based on what we personally want, we are going to miss opportunities. We're going to miss deals in certain markets that we're interested in. And look, if you're like, look, I will not settle for buying things that are super modern I will not buy a residential home in a mountain market. It has to be a cabin, but there's no cabins for sale. Guess what? It's probably not going to be the market you need to be looking in. You need to look somewhere else. It's as simple as that. So we have to accept that this is an investment and we're making an investment decision, unless it's for vacation purposes. And by all means, buy whatever you want. But if you're listening to this podcast, it's not for that, right? So if it's an investment, then we need to be thinking about the customer experience, the marketing experience, who are we trying to attract, and what is going to work the best? What's going to drive the most money, right? So, and that's where you have to think about the guest avatar. Okay. So people miss a lot of great deals because they don't understand who and why is coming to that market. See it all the dang time. I mean, look, the guest avatar is like, I should probably just build out like a couple profiles because really there's not that many different guest avatars. But I see too many times people making like, especially larger properties, more geared towards like large groups of people. Maybe like they have like corporate retreats, bachelorette parties in certain markets that are more family friendly markets. And you're like, well, who is coming here and why are they coming here? Is it, yeah, sure, you might host some of those groups and they can come to that market. They can go everywhere, but the amount of the supply of demand for those particular groups is going to be lower than maybe some other markets like a Nashville or Vegas or I don't know, Miami or Scottsdale. That's probably a better example than Miami, Scottsdale for bachelorette parties. So, if you're trying to do, bachelorette parties in the Smokies, like that, sure, but that's not really a thing, right? So I know I'm picking on the Smokies today, but the point being is know your guest avatar. All right. Okay. Last one. We're going to spend some time on this because I have a legitimate example, and this is probably one of the number one reasons why people miss great deals is simply they don't know what to look for. I know it sounds silly, but that's true. Most people, and it kind of ties in everything else, but they like what I'm talking about. Like most of you listening to this, I would probably guarantee like 95% of you listening to this are like, Kenny, you're absolutely right. It needs to have a moat. It needs to be unique. I need to have vision. I need to understand the guest avatar. I need to understand, like I need to act fast, all these great things. Sure. Cool. Now I look at a market and I have an idea of what a moat could be. And your idea of what a moat could be is going to be in your head. I don't know what your head, but a lot of people, when I say, well, what's a moat? And they're like, views. Or a lot of times it's waterfront is a moat, which, okay, those are quote unquote moats, true. But they're only looking for that. And so what I'm finding is that people don't actually know what to look for in markets. They don't know how to find market moats. And although earlier I was saying that if you're on a time crunch, you're not really just looking for markets, you're looking for properties and you need to look across multiple markets. But the fact of the matter is you also need to be looking for properties that have some sort of moat, but you do need to understand what the moats can be in the market, and they can vary. There's a lot of like moats that are not as obvious, and we're going to look at an example of one with the numbers that you might miss because you just don't understand that market and you don't understand what works in that market. So if you have time, if you're not on a time crunch and you're literally studying out these markets where you're looking, it's really, really important to go into the data, to look at the top performing properties and why are they the top performing properties? What makes them stand out from everybody else? They're not all going to be waterfront. They're not all going to have mountain views. They're not all going to be, walking distance to the beach. There's always something else, one or two properties or three properties or whatever. There's always going to be some properties that are performing that are doing really, really well, but don't fit the common like, oh, this is a mountain market, therefore it has views. It has to have views. Or this is a beach market, therefore it has to be on the beach. Or this is a, like we'll take the Bourbon Trail market. Oh, well, it's next to a distillery. Like we are making gross assumptions without really knowing that market and what potential moats can be. So let's look at an example. So I'm going to go, to Asheville, North Carolina. And we're going to take a look at this property here in, so this is a property that a client bought over a year ago. And they bought it. You can see the purchase price here, $749. It was listed as a 3-bed, 3-bath with over 2,400 square feet. Is that right? I feel like it was bigger than that, but no, I guess it's that. Long story short. So let's look at some of the pictures. So this is in Asheville, North Carolina, a mountain market. So what did we just say about our natural prejudices against, and it's not that prejudices isn't a good term. It's probably like more like our assumptions like when you think of mountain market, you think what properties do well there? Views, right? That's like a common assumption that properties that do well have views. And that is true. It's not true, but it's only a partial truth, right? Because there are other types of properties that don't have views that also do well there. So what do they look like? Where are they located and why? You actually do the research on that and you can figure it out pretty quickly. So let's take a look at this property first. Okay, so this is a house. It's pretty nice. It's very residential looking. All right. It has some views in the shot that we're looking at right here. So what I'm doing, guys, if you're listening to this episode, which most of you are, I am once again doing a video version of this, which will probably come out hopefully a day after this episode goes live. So heads up on that. If you message me, I'll tell you it's coming out the day after. It's on the YouTube channel at Cashflow Positive. So the property we're looking at, there's a drone shot of the photo and it's got some partial views, but it's partial views, right? It's down kind of in a valley and it looks up, but it's got some space. All right. And it's a nice house. It's not a log cabin. It's residential. This is the inside living room. Okay. And it's got a nice window there. It was I think built in 2017. So it's relatively new construction. Okay. So it's nice. It's really nice. The kitchen's nice, big bedrooms. Listed as a 3-bedroom, but we found out that there were 2 extra bedrooms. So it could be a 5-bedroom. Okay. And it was listed for, let's go back to Zillow. It was listed for, come on. Was it listed for? It was not listed for $749. That's incorrect. It was listed for like $800 or something. So whatever. So listed for $800. The client bought it for $750. So, and this is like an upstairs, like flex room or whatever. And you can see the outside. It's got this yard, really nice yard with a little tiny waterfall there. And it's on about property size, about an acre. So almost an acre size lot. All right. 2,400 square feet, could be a 5-bedroom, 3-bath. Awesome. So we've seen the pictures of it. Let's talk numbers. So the client comes in and we're like, okay, what are we going to do this thing? Why is this property special? We have some views. It's new construction, which you could argue in Asheville, they're not building a ton of houses. They're building some, but they're not building a ton. So you could say that's okay, but that's not that unique. So why is this property, what's unique about this property? I'm going to pull up this picture here. When you think of a mountain market and you think of views, what does that typically mean about the lot size of the property? Small. Or there's a lot of land that's unusable. So when you're looking at a property like this, and it's got over or almost an acre of lot, okay, so it's like a little over 7, almost 8/10 of an acre. It's got space, but there was also this big lot next to it that the owner of it's technically an unbuildable lot because of the septic system. I don't know, someone sold, the guy who sold this property, he owned both and he subdivided both, thinking that he could build on both, but found out he could not. So he's keeping this lot, but it's unbuildable. So he can't put anything on it. And the guy who owns it lives over here. This is the other house. There's always a story to these deals. That's why I like to tell them, because there's a little bit more to unpack here, because this property sat on the market for over a month. And so we find out, we're like, okay, well, this is an empty lot. This is cool. There's a lot of space here to do things. So what can we do? We got some views, very little neighbors, other neighbors like up the hill, other ones all the way down here. So very little neighbors. What can we do that other properties can't have in this area of Asheville? And it's leveraging the land. Leveraging the land for what? Leveraging the land for amenities. Okay. So when we don't have prime location, when we don't have prime, the unique, like crazy unique property, we have to make it up with design, decor, and amenities on top of whatever else our moat is. In this case, the moat is simply the land, the space. Most properties in Asheville do not have this kind of acreage. And if they do, it's of a hillside. It's not usable acreage. That's really important. Sure, you can go buy a cabin in Asheville in the middle of nowhere with like 30 acres of land. Okay, but it's literally covered in trees. So you got to get rid of all the trees. And it's on a hillside. So it's very steep and unusable. Okay, so this is unique. I don't see a lot of properties like this. Okay, but that doesn't make it special yet. And that's the key part. That's why most people miss these opportunities, because this property is not yet special. There's nothing here. There's no amenities here. It's just simply land. So people look at this and go, what's special about this? Just the land. But if you don't know the market, if you don't know what does well in this market and what people can add and what they can't add, then this isn't going to fly for you. This isn't going to work. So long story short, let's show the actual property. So this is the property afterwards. Hey, I'm going to click on some of the pictures. So they put a fence around it and they added a pickleball court, a chess set. They did a barrel sauna, a hot tub, a little kids play set, really pimped out the backyard and the fire pit, added a bunch of lighting. We go on the inside. They redid the garage into a really cool game room. You can see it's painted here. They did the upstairs loft I kind of showed you earlier with bunk beds. That's one of the bedrooms. You can see this backyard area. I'll go back here. But long story short, they fenced in the property, made it pet friendly, which, number one, there aren't a lot of fenced in properties in Asheville either. Remember, if they're all on the side of a mountain, and they can have all the land in the world, but they're not going to be fenced in. So advantage, stack, moat. Okay. And adding all these things. And now you look at it and you're like, holy crap, this is a really cool property. They did a fantastic job. They spent about $250,000 in all this. They got like a $30,000 credit, but they still spent like $250,000 into the furnishings and amenities of this property. And this was already a renovated property. So you can see all the pictures here of the design. They did a really good job. Cool property. I actually saw in person. It's very, very nice property. And in year one, so let's go back. Let's talk purchase price. They bought this thing for $750,000. Okay. In year one, they did $210,000. Year one. Okay. Now, I was forecasting like 140 to 160, and they blew it out of the water. And they blew it out of the water because their design, furnishings, obviously, but the amenities and what they did when they fenced in the yard. They went the extra mile and they added the things that the other properties just couldn't do. There are properties, and there are now more properties with pickleball courts. There are properties with hot tubs, right? In Asheville, there are properties with barrel saunas and fire pits and all this, but they're not fenced in, and they don't have all of these things on top of the design and the decor. And then on top of that too, they weren't $750,000. Stack with the right purchase price, and you have a really good deal. But if you're staring at this property as, I want to buy in the mountains and it needs to have 10 out of 10 views and it needs to blah, 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 this property is not going to be on your radar, and you just missed an incredible opportunity. So lesson, know what works in the market, know the missing pieces, the holes, what I call the holes in the market. But more importantly, those holes are moats, right? The opportunities. So this property, it's great because it's such a low purchase price for what you're getting as a 5-bedroom in this market, that you can really, really outperform. And even if revenue dips a little bit, even if he makes, let's say he goes down to 160 for whatever reason. Okay, guess what? He's still netting a ton of money. I think he said he netted like 110, 105. He listens, so he'll come and correct me, but it's going to be around that number. So $105,000 a year on this property net. So incredible deal, incredible opportunity, not obvious whatsoever. And frankly, like looking at this house, like this isn't one to brag about buying. Oh, wow, I just bought this one. But the pictures on the Airbnb listing, the after, this is something worth bragging about. And he's absolutely crushed it. And so I know that you guys can do the exact same thing too. You can find opportunities like these out there. You just have to know what the holes are in the market. You just have to know what maximizes revenue in the market, know how to build and elevate that moat. The property naturally has a moat, but it's not a completed moat. Okay. It's not going to be a verti moat. You got to add it. You got to add your vision. We have designers in this space. We have people who can help you do those things to build those things out, but you got to leverage them. You can't just rely on, hey, let's go do X, Y, and Z, and that's it. I hear too many basic, like I was talking to somebody today, And I'm like, what are you going to do with the property? They're like, I'm going to add a game room, an EV charger, and a fire pit. And I was like, okay, so you're going to be average. And they're like, what do you mean by that? I was like, that's average. Everybody has those things, right? Like, what else are you going to do to it? And they're like, oh, that was it. And I was like, so you're going to buy a bad deal. And they're like, why is it going to be a bad deal? Because you're going to be average. You're shooting for the average. And as we know, the average is getting pushed out. So be smart about your investments. Hopefully this will help you know how to find and actually identify, truly identifying great deals and give you the confidence to take that leap and take action on those. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I will next week's episode. I'm going solo again. I'm going to do more of these solo ones. We got to talk about this pricing thing that Airbnb just released. Like, this is a big deal. And I have a lot of good stuff prepared for this. So I've been looking forward to that. So I will see you on the next week. Have a good day.